On to our big focus story now. The National Child Rights Body has drafted new guidelines to protect child artists or minor actors in showbiz industry. One of the major highlights of these draft guidelines is that no minor should work for more than 27 consecutive days in a year and over 6 hours in a day while they are shooting for any movie or for a TV serial for that matter. The draft guidelines make it very clear that these guidelines will cover films, OTT, reality shows and other fields where child artists are involved. I am now joined by Ms. Vani Tripathi Tikoo, who is part of the drafting committee of these NCPCR guidelines. Very good evening, Vaniji. I want to begin by asking you here that this is a very, very important issue for the child artists. Hardly anybody takes up these issues. The fact that NCPCR thought of issuing fresh guidelines, but covering mostly issues of working hours, working conditions. What about suitability of subjects, the way children are portrayed? Is that also being covered?
Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for paying attention to the guidelines. You are one of the first television channel of the country who's responding to something so important. To begin with, I would say that my years of work with children, one thing I noticed as a performing artist myself, and you see, children become an ecosystem for employment, for many, many people, including their own parents. All over the world, there are very, cogent guidelines for how many hours of work a child can put in, whether it's performing live on stage, whether it is working on television, whether it's the OTT or cinema. But sadly we do so much lip service on child rights and, what should be the support structure for children. We talk so much about education for children, but we never pay attention to something which almost comes in the parlance of child labor. Remember when the carpet factory children, were up for debate a couple of years ago, and when the Child Labor Act was formed, one of the major reasons for formulating, that law was that children were being used as bonded labor. I'm very sorry to say, and with great responsibility, I wish to say this both as a producer, as an actor, children have also become bonded labor for their caretakers, for people, who produce these shows, and also for their own parents. Mostly I've seen the parents would give up their employment and become managers for the children. They work 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours. They go without food, without sleep. They have no education and also miss their exams. So while we were drafting these guidelines, one of the most important thing was keeping child as a center of focus, attention and care. I'm again using the word care, which we seldom give to our children. Also, the misnomer is that children who belong to the lowest strata of society, end up becoming like this. I'm sorry to say, it's also the middle class, also the upper middle class, which is now using children as an industry. Coming to the second part of your question, I think it's a very important area that you are focusing on. Yes, portrayals. I also happen to be a board member of the Central Board of Film Certification, and one thing which has always bothered me, sitting on their chair looking at content which is age related and is classified according to age. We never pay attention to also what is the ecosystem in which the child is working, and also the portrayals which are happening around him or her. And I'm not only talking about the on-screen portrayals that you see. There is also a lot of environment which is non-child friendly when the child is also at work, including the scripts that he or she has to spew out. And also, I wish to underline here that reality TV shows, I don't know how much attention they pay to the whole concept of success and failure. On one hand, we say we shouldn't be competing, we shouldn't be pushing children beyond a certain borderline. But here, there is a show which is a make or break for his or her career. A career which will be as a performing artist, as a dancer, as a music person, and so on and so forth. But that periphery never gets defined. So obviously within the guidelines, it is still work in progress. The guidelines are out. But we are talking to various conglomerates of the industry, including the producers.
Yes, you've made a very important point about how parents, the role of the parents in this, because correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, parents are the custodians, they are the guardians. So, you know, in many cases, the producers or the employers might say when the parents are okay with it, who's anyone else to say? So, would these guidelines be anyway binding towards the parents as well, the guardians as well, that they would have to necessarily follow certain rules the moment you decide to get your child or your ward employed with any production house or in any sort of a screen sort of product?
Obviously, you are very right. But remember, this is a shared responsibility. This is a human life at stake. If the parent is using the child for his or her own employment, that does not mean the producer can just shrug off responsibility and say, I'm going to make my millions riding high on the smile or the tears of that child, but I'm not going to share the responsibility with the person who's... So just one undertaking, a lot of producers take, a lot of producers don't even take that. The point here is, how do we make working hours for children constructive? How do we make portrayals in and around children progressive? And remember one thing which I said while we were drafting the guidelines, exam calendar is the same all across the state, all across the country. Some states have it up and down. Holidays, summer holidays, winter holidays, spring breaks are exactly at the same time. When you know the child is going to go through an exam, this is where the shared responsibility kicks in, both for the parent and also for the person who's using the child, for the production initiative. I'm not saying the children shouldn't work. Well, they are performers. They may be natural performers. They may be children who really want and wish to perform. But the point is, we as adults, have we paid attention to how much, how often, and where and how are they working?
Yes, that's a very, very important point. I really appreciate your joining us this evening. Vani Tripathi, thank you so much for your time and for explaining to us the importance of these guidelines. Let me now bring in, joining us here on the show, a child artist who's a very well-known face in Indian television, Ruhanika Dhawan, and also Kasturi Banerjee, another well-known actress from television. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Ruhanika, I want to begin with you by asking you, how do child actors really manage? I'm sure you're asked this question a lot because as I see, and I'm a mother of 2 kids, as I see children beyond school, they just want to have fun. They cannot be, made to work. But if we understand, the acting or being in a film set would have to be work for you, isn't it? How do you manage to balance?
Firstly, a very good evening to you and namaste to all the viewers out there. Okay, so initially from grades 1 to I'd say 3, it was a little disturbed as I was in a younger grade. I didn't have that much pressure from academics. So we'd have to miss school for shoots or we'd have late night shoots because we had just started off Ye Hai Mohabbatein then and it was going really, really well. I was also one of the main characters, so it was crucial that I had to be there on set and fulfill my commitments. However, we realized that it isn't going to work that way, and I cannot let my work disturb my academics because I've always been academically inclined and I didn't want my education to be disturbed. So we used to do Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and Balaji agreed to everything my mother put forth. So the rest of the days I used to go ahead to school, focus on my extra co-curriculars. So I've not really missed out onto anything. And I've always been treated as a normal kid, not any different from any of my peers.
Right. Kasturi, I want you to come in because you must have shared space with child artists and you know the ins and outs of how it works in the television industry, in TV serials. There are reports that say that child artists are often invisible victims of even child labor sometimes. They enter into an adult world without the requisite support or safeguards. In your experience, what is it like? In the Indian television industry, for instance, are rules followed? Is there a conducive atmosphere, an environment for children to work?
Good evening, Afrida. As Ruhanika said, she was treated as like an individual, which is very true what you pointed out, that not every child gets that because not every child is playing the center of the whole story. So most of the time, in one single room, the parents are sitting and they've been waiting. Also, the 6 hours rule that has come, I was going to talk about it. The 6 hours goes in waiting. So the child is probably shooting only for 6 hours. If they can probably show you that, yeah, he's actually shot 6 hours, but then he was probably waiting for 8 hours, and the parents are waiting. Probably they get the smallest room. I have not seen them being equal. I have seriously not seen them equal because I remember because I'm not going to take names, but I do remember that some kids, they had tough time. The mother would come and complain. So I'm glad that NCPCR and has come out with the guidelines, and also that Mirror now is talking about it right now. It was much overdue.
Yes, it was much overdue. Ruhanika, if you know the rules, and I'm going to say it because it's important to spread awareness around these things as well, that the Child and Adolescent Labour Act that was drafted way back in 1986 makes it mandatory. These rules already exist, by the way. We are now only talking about a fresh set of guidelines. But these rules exist that no child should be allowed to work for more than 5 hours a day, not more than 3 hours without rest. Is this followed, Ruhanika?
Back when I was shooting, it wasn't followed. In fact, I'd like to put forth that a lot of the child actors, especially dupes and even almost all of the child actors, are the first ones to come on set and the last ones to leave. So even if they aren't working, that sitting in that one room killing time it's like you're losing on to time where we can actually do something more productive like academics or study or complete our assignments and homework. But that's killing time.
Even playing outside for that matter, I think that is also very important for kids.
That I feel like the children that are working are losing onto, and it also gets tiring just sitting in a room for hours at end.
Yes, I'm sure it's tough. But at the same time, I'm sure, Ruhanika, you've enjoyed the fact that your talent is recognized. They're not everyone who can make it. You would have certain skill sets owing to which you are there and you're a known face today. But like I said, it's very important, even for the child artists, even now you're a teenager, to know that these rules exist, these guidelines exist. Kasturi, is there enough awareness among the stakeholders?
It's a glamour world. So every child, somewhere inside would want to be into this profession. Even for a mother, I'm talking about myself. I'm not even talking about anybody else. I would love to see my child on screen. But I'll tell you honestly, when I came back here after 13 years, I had to go stand in the queue to give an audition. When I went there, in a couple of months, probably I made it inside, but I could still see kids standing outside with their parents in the queue, in the sun, when it's raining. It's just to get in there for an audition. And imagine what happens when it comes later. And it is so true, Ms. Tikoo just pointed out, they give up on their own career just to see. It's not career. The child probably just has a knack. Like today they want to do football, tomorrow they want to do cricket, tomorrow they want to do some acting stuff. It's not that they're choosing that as career. When they completely push them, having knack, having interest, having the talent, that all of that can be nurtured and worked upon, and they can use it later.
There's absolutely no problem in children getting a platform to perform. There's it's after all a form of art, and children may be encouraged to take it up as a passion, as a hobby, even as a profession. But when they do it very early in life, then it becomes certain guidelines, certain rules must be followed. There must be certain regulations.
Emotional issues also crop up.
Yes, because there shouldn't be financial compulsions, and parents should not be blindsided by the fact that there is fame and there is money. And since this particular report also says that parents often quit their jobs, depend on the children for a livelihood, then there is a problem, isn't it?
And what happens to the scene forward? I mean, the parents also forward that what happens to the child when it grows up and goes to the adult stage. Is he still going to be a child actor? No. Is he going to be a very established like male actor, female actor? No, that it depends, because as a child, if she has made something, what is her fallback plan? Does she or he have any?
Ruhanika,
also
what are
there's
your
guidelines
plans?
that
What are you
saying-
currently working on? Your career graph has been fantastic so far. You are known nationally. I know you have a huge fan following. You have almost made a career already in like what, you're 15 right now? So what are
I'm
your plans for the future? What do you want to do?
so I'm 14 right now.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
And it's a crucial year. So I want to take a little break this year because I really want to focus on my academics because education comes first and I need to crack these board examinations. So taking a break in once I'm in my 11th and 12th and I may not have that much stress or pressure. I can firstly go to an acting school, learn acting, learn learn the techniques and then be back on screen.
Yes, but you know, if you have had a chance to go through the guidelines, are you satisfied that now there is a watchdog, there are people, there's a set of rules that have to be followed and it is in the best interest of child actors? Are you satisfied or you think there's more that needs to be done, more implementation required?
I think it's a beautiful initiative and it's great for us child actors because no light has been thrown, especially on these child actors, because we should be treated equally. We should be treated equally and there shouldn't be any differentiation between an actor that's an adult and a child actor. So I think it's great that now we're talking about such topics. It's great for the child actors and the mental and physical well-being.
So you can only work 6 hours at a stretch. You can only work 27 days in a row per year. So do you think there will be, problems getting work, for you, for instance, if some of these things are enforced?
I think if production houses and the staff plans their time and they work on time management and probably plan it out accordingly, it can be managed.
Okay, it's very much doable. Kasturi, do you agree that these are not some rules that cannot be applied? These are very doable things and it should have been already enforced.
Production houses, Afrida, who worked around this. I remember one particular director who would actually make a whole chart where she would call a child actor only for certain hours or only for the weekend. So that is an excellent way of working. And if a lot of other production houses start following these, I think India will be a beautiful place to work.
Because the idea is to bring it at par with the best practices across the world. And I was reading somewhere when it comes to the actors of Stranger Things, there's a very set policy that has to be followed to maintain that they don't miss out on their studies. Ruhanika, how do you, manage this part? Because I know that these rules say that there must be a tutor on the sets. Does it work like that when you are not in that particular environment, when you are made to sit with a tutor, you're on a film set? How does it feel? How does it work?
So a film set is not just work. It feels like fun to me. Maybe it's because I enjoy doing it. I love what I do. But if you create the environment, like if you just allot a separate room, which is very much doable for a film set, and a lot of time for a child actor to focus and call a tutor in, I think you're gonna be managing time well and be productive for the kid.
Right. So these things are all, in a way to accommodate the concerns of a child. It can be a school-going child after all. There are academics, there are other activities. But generally, Kasturi, and this is my last question to both my guests, I'll just come for closing comments now. When it comes to childhood, when it comes to that impressionable age, we as parents, we are protective of giving too much exposure to our children. But when it comes to a film set, a child will always be exposed to all kinds of emotions. Sometimes they may even have to mouth certain dialogues which are not age appropriate. So how do we restrict that part? How do we control that part?
Not only expose the makeup, the expression, the dance moves that they're doing, it's unbelievable. It's sometimes very uncomfortable to watch. So, of course, they can work around it. They don't have to dance on certain numbers. They don't have to say those dialogues. Would you say those things around your relative or your parents around? I mean, okay, fine. We all love enjoying kids' movie. But then why can't we really work on the lines?
Yes, absolutely. Any last word from you, Ruhanika, on how this should be taken forward? There will be others. There will be children who wants to join the showbiz and take up big projects. Already we have big child actors who have made big names. What would be your advice to them?
So I feel like the writers should ensure that there isn't any language that isn't appropriate, knowing that a child would be saying it or any other adult actor saying it in front of a child. It doesn't enforce. I'm. It isn't right for the child to be in that type of an environment. And even if there are scenes in a movie or a show, they shouldn't have the child in around. So that is ensuring that the child doesn't get influenced.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ruhanika and Kasturi, for joining me in this interesting conversation.
Thank
And
you,
thanks
Afrida.
for giving us your time.